Everyone, this is Pascal. Matt grew up in Regent Square and still spends many of his days playing in the 9 Mile Run watershed. When he's not teaching calculus or statistics at Point Park University, he's usually playing on the rivers with his trails with his family. All right, Matt, take it away.
Thanks, Rose. Can everybody hear me? So I'm an academic too, but my story is not very academic. In fact, it's kind of foolhardy. So here's what I've put together for you. After 9 Mile Run emerges from the subterranean depths of the East End behind the old food land, it first slides down a broken concrete ramp into a stream bed composed of rubble and rock. Fabricated vertical walls contain it for a few dozen yards before it flows into a fully man-made concrete culvert, which directs it to a spot where somebody in the 80s graffitied "The Who" at the edge of a giant pool. There the water collects before running into the natural stream bed that passes through Frick Park. I grew up in a house not 250 feet from The Who, but I didn't know the creek's real name until I was a teenager, and that's because everybody I knew called it Shit Creek, named for its source, storm runoff and sewage in a combined flow beneath our city. Because of its notoriety for being polluted, 9 Mile Run was known to me and my neighborhood friends as an off-limits zone. It was a hard and fast boundary, but you know how about kids and boundaries. One summer afternoon, my friends and I couldn't resist. We took a break from playing and waded into the stream, cooling off in the water. I don't know how my father found out, but when I got home, he wasn't happy. Never go in that creek again, I was told. Years later, I learned to paddle whitewater on the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. I was in school there, and as graduation approached, I began to look for jobs. Hoping I might land back in Pittsburgh, I sent an email to the 9 Mile Run project director. Those riffles that have been created where the old rugby field was look like they might have some potential for whitewater when storms hit, I wrote. Are there features like this all the way to the Mon? The response given to me was clear. The reality is that the water quality, including sewage overflow, is unlikely to improve significantly until major changes occur in the upper watershed. To make a long story short, I wouldn't let my dog in the stream, let alone get in it myself. I pretty much ignored the warning. Email back when you think the stream is cleaned up, I wrote. I'd love to have the first descent of 9 Mile Run, food land to the Mon. I never got a return email. I eventually made my way back to Pittsburgh, and I bought a house at the top of the same hill I grew up on, right above 9 Mile Run. I started watching the creek after the rainstorms. I figured nobody in the right mind would paddle Shit Creek when the water was up. But then again, whitewater kayakers are not necessarily of right mind. You see, we're not the kayakers you see crossing the calm waters of the Allegheny. Paddling whitewater is a different sport altogether. We can't just go out and paddle when we want because many rivers and creeks often don't have enough water in them. We have to seek out waterways that have just the right conditions, and that means we need rains. We're used to kayaking in foul weather. If it rains on top of snowpack, that's even better. We suit up with neoprene and Gore-Tex to keep warm and dry. And we daydream about paddling a creek nobody has paddled before. So my day finally came in 2010. It was a cold November morning with lots of early rain. My wife and 2 kids were still sleeping when the rain stopped. I jogged down to take a look. The creek was high enough to paddle, and the water level was dropping. That's a good thing because on a rising creek, we have to worry about the real possibility of floating logs. I ran back to the house and suited up. It was cold, probably in the low 40s, which was good because I wanted to seal out as much dirty water as possible without overheating. Base layer, mid layer, dry top with latex gaskets, neoprene mittens, my helmet of course, and a neoprene skirt to seal myself into the boat. Not a drop of water could get into my boat, and the only exposed skin was between my Adam's apple and my eyebrows. I headed down the hill, excited to paddle, and I decided to drop in right at The Who. Peering across that familiar graffiti, I reconsidered what I was about to do for one last time. I knew for certain there were no waterfalls, but would the tunnel under Commercial Avenue be clear? I was certain that there were no dangerous log jams, but there is a pipe over the creek right about head level, about 100 yards down. I looked around. The creek looked and smelled fine. It felt right, and I was ready. So I slid down the bank into 9 Mile Run. I wasn't crossing the line that my father had set for me as a kid. I was paddling it. Within a few seconds, I was navigating tiny rapids at well-known locations. The first crossing of the 276 single track, the wooden bridges along the creek, a familiar bench, a second crossing of 276. And then I came around a bend. I looked through a clear tunnel underneath Commercial Avenue, and I paddled right through. I paddled under the Parkway Bridge. Thousands of people were crossing over on their way to work. The first actual rapid came after that, a little 2-foot drop over rocks that wouldn't even register as a rapid if I was on any other river. At the foot of the slag heaps, I peered up at steep walls and then to rotting iron girders left by the steel industry. After the trail bridge, I enjoyed another rapid where a bridge used to cross near Duck Hollow. The bridge piers and some debris were all that remained. A few seconds later, I was at the Mon. I hid my boat, I jogged home, I took a shower, and I told my wife where I had been. She asked me to take another shower. To my kayaking friends out there, paddling 9 Mile Run is a thrill and worth experiencing once, but I'll never do it again. If you do, I recommend nose plugs. And of course, you should never paddle a rising stream because when the water is coming up, you might encounter dangerous floating logs. The same goes for 9 Mile Run. It's just a different kind of log.
Wow, thank you so much, Matt. That was wonderful. That
You're
was so
welcome.
wonderful. Great to hear. I've heard legends. I've heard told that someone has paddled 9 Mile Run, but I'd never actually, heard it from the mouth of the person who'd done it. So that's amazing.
I will say I'm not the only one who has.
Okay, well, you're the first I've actually heard of, so there you go.
Thank you.
All right, so cancel the spotlight.